World Cargo International, the experts in shipping to the Caribbean, with weekly sailings to Kingston, Jamaica, and fortnightly sailings to Trinidad, Barbados, Dominica, St. Lucia, and more. We can ship almost anything from personal effects to excess baggage to cars and vans and plant machinery. We can even supply containers and barrels direct to your home address. And collection is simple too. We simply come to you. World Cargo International, taking the hassle out of shipping. Pop in and see us at 55A Princess Street, Luton, LU1 580. Call us on 01582 733 711 or see us online at worldcargoint.com.
Very good afternoon to all our listeners who are joining us on our www.pamtengo.com and everybody else who's joining us on our Facebook live page. We are also broadcasting on our YouTube page. I would like to say it's a wonderful day. It's just turned cold all of a sudden. We were having a few days of summer in the past week, but then overnight everything is just gone gray and been having snow. But anyway, that's how England goes. Today we're going to be talking about domestic abuse. This is something that is affecting our health, our well-being, and it's a safeguarding issue. It is in a very very problem in the current situations that we've been through so far with the pandemic, the lockdown. It hasn't made it easy for those people who are suffering, living with somebody who is being abusive to them. So today, I have got a few ladies that are going to join me, and we are going to be talking about domestic abuse. What is domestic abuse, and what help is out there? If you need any help, how can you get help, and where do you go to get help? I'm going to start by introducing the Emerald team from the Bedfordshire Police, and I will start with Holly. If I would just add her on, she's in the studio with us. Hello, Holly. Good afternoon.
Hiya. Hiya, you're right.
I'm good, thank you. It's wonderful to see you joining us this afternoon. Just want to say thank you very much for taking the time. So, if you could just introduce yourself, just your name, and a little bit about yourself, please.
Yeah, so my name's Holly Burton. I am a victim engagement officer in the Emerald team at Bedfordshire Police. The Emerald team is our specialist domestic and sexual violence team. So I've worked there for just coming up about 5 years now. So I'm police staff, not a police officer.
Okay, thank you. I will then add on Sally. Hi, Sally. If you can
Hi.
just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your job within the Bedfordshire Police.
Of course. So my name's Sally Taylor. I work alongside Holly in the Emerald unit. My area of domestic abuse that I deal with is slightly different. I deal with victims of honour-based abuse and forced marriage. I've been in the Emerald team for 7 years now, and I've been 3 years in this role. And I'm actually a police officer in the unit, but I just deal with safeguarding and supporting those victims.
Thank you, Sally. I've also got this afternoon one of the partners that works hand in hand with yourself, the Bedfordshire Police. I've got Nicky Panton from the Stepping Stones charity. I'll just add her on and then she can tell us a little bit about herself as well. Hi, Nicky.
Hi there. My name's Nicky Panton. I'm the CEO at Stepping Stones Luton. So, as you said, we're a women's charity supporting victims of domestic abuse. I've been there for just over 3 years, most of that during the strange times of lockdown. So it sort of feels a bit longer than that. But yeah, thank you very much for inviting me.
You're welcome. Thank you, ladies, once again for joining us here on Pamtengo Radio. And to those who are listening, please share, like our page, And let us hear from you as well. If you have anything, any questions that you have for my panel ladies who are joining me this afternoon, please feel free to just type in your questions in the comment section, and we will try and address your questions as we go along. So to start with, I think we need a definition of what exactly is domestic abuse. I don't know if I can start with Nikki. If you can give us just a brief definition of what your understanding of domestic abuse is.
Yeah, of course. I wish I'd been prepared and got the government definition ready to go, but sadly not. What I would say is it's important to note that domestic abuse is not just around physical abuse or physical violence. That's why we try and call it domestic abuse rather than domestic violence. So it can involve any kind of behaviour that is coercive or controlling. There are lots of different types. So it might be financial abuse, like isolating the victim, and it doesn't just happen in sort of intimate partner relationships, so like couple relationships. It can be domestic abuse like within the family. We as a charity tend to deal with more with kind of couples, but that also could be like lesbian and gay couples. It doesn't have to be heterosexual.
Fantastic. You've summed up very well, actually. Seeing that you said you hadn't prepared for that. So, from our point of view, my community, I mean, let me speak for myself. When I hear the word domestic abuse, all I think about is the physical abuse. I didn't realize there are many other forms of abuse that sometimes you can be experiencing those forms of abuse and don't even realize that's what you're going through. So, like you mentioned, there's financial or economic abuse, there's harassment and stalking. And lately, with all the social media, the online and digital abuse is on the rise, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we sometimes have ladies that come to us and they're kind of in denial of what's happening to them. They don't realise that that's not okay, and it's like, well, he doesn't hit me, so I'm not in an abusive relationship. But we try and kind of educate women around what they should and shouldn't sort of accept in relationships.
Absolutely. And this is why I brought you here, ladies, today, so that we can educate a few women out there. There is a lot of women who are suffering in silence or in just a lack of knowledge. They don't know they're going through abuse. They just think it's normal because their partner or their family member doesn't hit them. It to them it's not abuse at all. For Holly, if you can just maybe from your job at the moment, when women come to you, what sort of abuses are you handling in your job at the moment?
So quite a mix, kind of exactly what Nikki said. Although we do get, a lot of physical assaults reported to us, obviously controlling and coercive abuse is a crime. So, we're getting more and more reports along with controlling and coercive. We have the financial abuse as well. When we carry out dash risk assessments that are completed at domestic incidents, they ask questions around all different forms of domestic abuse. So I think, like what Nikki said, there's a lot of people who don't realise that, controlling coercive behaviour isn't right. And actually, there is that support available out there, and it does all come under domestic abuse.
And Sally, in your job role, the women who come forward to report these cases, is there any situations where they just think that domestic abuse is being physical, and there's no other form of abuse that they are knowledgeable of?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of abuse that we deal with, and it's like you say, it's not just physical, but a lot of the victims that I deal with have encountered a lot of emotional abuse, a lot of mental torture, where they're told that they're not worth anything, they're worthless because they're a a female, and that they don't have any rights, so they can't speak up. And a lot of them are unaware that there is actually the support and advice and access for them out there, that they don't have to suffer in silence. We are here to help them. So a lot of the abuse that I deal with is a lot of emotional abuse, like Holly and Nicky have already said, a lot of controlling and coercive behaviour, a lot of financial abuse where they're not allowed to open bank accounts or have access to money, not allowed access to any benefits they may be entitled to as well, and that's claimed by their husbands or even their family. So it's just raising the awareness of what it is and that they can access support, and those kinds of offences are against the law. It doesn't just have to be physical.
I was going to ask, like, let's say if somebody is coming to report a situation where they are being financially abused, is it? I know a lot of women go through a lot of domestic abuse, but there is also a lot of men who are going through domestic abuse. So I don't know in your job what is the ratio like men coming forward to report these matters? Is it more men or is it more women? How is that ratio like, Sally?
Certainly in my role, it's probably 90% female, 10% men that we get reporting. And I don't know whether that's because there's still a stigma associated with men reporting domestic abuse.
I think that's absolutely right. There's more stigma. Men are always brought up to be, to be strong and to just get on with it. And also there is that fear that what is the community going to say about them if they go and report that they're being abused? It makes them feel weak, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
think.
absolutely. And they're often seen, particularly.
Go ahead, Sally.
Sorry, particularly with the victims that come forward to report.
Sally, I think you're breaking off there a bit. I think what maybe you can fill in for Sally and just. Mm.
Yeah, I can fill in. So yeah, I think, we don't get as many men report to us. And I think, like you say, it is still that stigma. And I think people's attitudes towards domestic abuse and the kind of bias that it is just usually around women being the victim. But, we do have men that report to us. And again, there are services that are available to support men as well. At the end of the day, it happens to a lot of people. They say 1 in 3 women, 1 in 5 men. So, there is a lot of men that are getting abused that obviously aren't getting that support. And it's just making sure that they're aware that we're here to help.
That's one thing I've noticed. There's more there's more being offered for women than for men. I don't know if I'm wrong in saying this, Nikki. How do you see it? Is there more help for women than there is for men?
Yeah, I think you're probably right, and certainly locally, I think there are probably more resources for female victims and maybe male victims. We do sometimes get males reach out, and unfortunately, we only work with women. That's a decision that we've kind of taken, so we can provide that real sort of specialised support and specialised safe space for them. And we tend to kind of refer people to national organisations.
Okay. So what organizations would you say, Sally, your Emerald? Okay, can you please just before we go any further, can you describe for us what the Emerald team is in the Bedfordshire Police and why you are called the Emerald team? I think Sally is having issues with her connection. Holly, you're going to have to step up.
That's all right. That's fine. That's okay. So the Emerald team, so yeah, we cover all domestic and sexual abuse. Not sure why we're actually called the Emerald team. I'm not actually, I've never asked that question. But like I said, it covers all different kinds of reporting. So it's, you know, the standard, medium, high risk. They all come into the Emerald team. And we have a specialist team of officers that deals with the crimes and investigates it. And then we also have our Emerald Safeguarding and Intervention team, which is the victim engagement officers, our MARAC team, and obviously our honour-based abuse team. So it incorporates all the kinds of different domestic abuse.
Okay. I have Sylvia who is watching us here on Facebook, and she's just made a comment that is it because mostly men are afraid of being laughed at by the police when they report abuse? Holly, is it something that is an issue for men to come into the police to report if they are going through any abuse within their lives?
I mean, I would hope, you know, no, we're here to believe victims. That's our job, to believe victims. You know, no one would ever get laughed at for reporting domestic abuse to us, whether it's a male or a female. You know, they're all offered the same equal support. The investigations are carried out completely the same. I think it's more just the general society bias of, you know, whether men or women suffer domestic abuse.
Yeah. So is there a specific team that let's say I come in, I'm a man, and I find there's a female officer there who is going to take my report. Is there a provision for me to ask to speak to a male officer who can take my who can record my report on somebody who's abusing me?
I mean, they can always ask, obviously, depending on the staffing levels, what officers are available on the day. Obviously, we can never promise and say, you know, there definitely will be a male officer available, as it
Okay.
works the same way with a woman officer being available, but there's no harm in ever asking.
Okay. So with your Emerald team, which other organizations do you work with who provide support, especially looking at men? It's something that I think is of concern, that there's not many organizations out there who are giving support to men who are in experiencing domestic violence.
Yeah. So in general, obviously the services that we refer to just in general for domestic abuse, obviously I'm based down in Luton. We also have victim engagement officers based up in Kempston. So I would refer to, you know, Stepping Stones, Luton Women's Centre. We work quite closely with the IDVA service as well. Obviously the IDVA service is for high risk victims and they support both men and women.
Okay.
We also work with in Families First in Bedford. They run a Talk for Men programme, and also, like Nicky said, national services like Mankind are also available to support male victims.
Okay. Yeah, so I think these are some of the details and information that we need to pass on out there to our communities, that as much as it looks like there is help for women, there is also organizations that are out there to help men. I would be grateful if probably you could share that information with me at the end of the program. Then we can put it on our Facebook page and just share it with all our listeners and those who are watching us. Nikki, your organization, you say is a charity organization. How are you financed to enable you to provide the services that you do to the community?
Yeah, we're completely reliant on grant funding and donations and local sort of community fundraising. So we are grateful to get quite well supported by the airport, who do support a lot of charities locally. So they've been a big supporter of us over the years. And then a lot of national grants we kind of apply along with everybody else. It can be really competitive. You tend to have to apply for lots and you get maybe one or two successes. And we're also this year starting to kind of dip our toe into sort of more community fundraising. So I'm going to get a little plug in now. Watch out for our spring postbox toppers over Easter. We're going to be yarn bombing Luton Town Centre. And on that will be a little QR code where if people like looking at those decorations on the post boxes, then they can donate.
Okay, that would be lovely. Maybe you can pop in that information in our comment section. I know a few weeks back you were doing a campaign as well, a fundraising a campaign. I met some of your ladies. I think it was Jo Francis. She's the
Yes.
one who put me in touch with you. I met her at the launch of the Evolve, which is a new organization which will be stepping in as well, helping women who need help with bursaries. Is it something that your organization is going to be sharing with your women that are victims to get them back on their feet? Or
Yes, definitely. That is such a great campaign that they've got going, and we've already kind of identified a couple of specific women who might be able to benefit from it. Yeah, it's a really great opportunity.
fantastic. I'm actually very proud to say that I'm one of the board of trustees on Evolve. So I'm very passionate with anything to do with women. I'm there. I always try and do my best. So it is good to hear that you're going to be passing on the information to the women who are coming to your center and seeing if they can get help, uh, whichever way they want to start off their new lives or carry on whatever they were doing in the past. It almost depends on what they decide in the end, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the right way to do it, isn't it? Let the kind of the woman lead, you know, and give her back the power to make the decisions herself.
Yeah. The only thing that worries me is that there is quite a number of women who are in a domestic, a very abusive relationship, and then they tend to go round and round in circles. I mean, they get abused, and then he apologizes. They go through sort of that lovey-dovey honeymoon phase again. I won't do it again, and then it happens again. And some women tend to not uh, want to come out of the relationship completely. So I don't know what your organization in situations like that. How do you help these women?
I think it's hard. We talk to our women about like the cycle of abuse, and we know that when some women come to us, they're just not ready or they're not in a position to leave that relationship. There are loads of reasons that people won't or can't leave. You know, for example, if someone's been financially abused, it's almost impossible. You know, where do they find accommodation? How do they support themselves? They might have children. You know, I think it's really important to never ever underestimate how difficult that decision is. And we make sure that we don't judge. We don't judge that. It's absolutely their decision. We obviously make sure that they are safe, that the children are safe, but we are kind of patient and just support them in their own decision making, give them the skills and the options and the knowledge to make the decisions themselves.
Fantastic. Um, Holly, with the pandemic, the lockdown, it was really, really tough time for everybody. And I can imagine if you're a victim who is living with somebody who is abusing you all the time, it was really a time when you felt like you don't want to be at home at all. Um, how was it? What were the challenges you faced to offer your services during lockdown? Because it was completely shut down. People could not go and come to the police station and talk to you face to face. How did you manage to handle matters like this?
I think it was really difficult. I think especially having places like schools and GPs closed, that's where, a lot of times people have, places where they can talk to other professionals or make reports to us,
Mm,
which obviously in the lockdowns, having those areas closed was really difficult. So I think it just meant that we needed to be a bit more flexible. If it meant that we met them, at the end of the street, if it meant that, sometimes obviously people might run late because they weren't able to get out of the house at certain times, or phone calls. It just meant being a lot more flexible. Obviously, having the pharmacies, they started opening up the safe spaces where we were able to obviously go and speak to people. That really helped. But obviously being at home and around a perpetrator, it's really difficult. And it's making sure that we actually don't put them at more risk by trying to contact them.
So would you say that during lockdown you've had to introduce better ways for women to communicate their situations if they couldn't come out of the house? I
Yeah.
think it was something that came out, Ask Annie.
Yeah, definitely. And there's also, there's some really helpful apps online that obviously we, can tell victims about. Like the Holly Guard app is something that, we tell people about. There's also other apps where, people can record domestic abuse. It's making sure that they had they might have a safe word with a friend or family that they could message. It's trying to think a little bit more outside the box, like you say, than what we did before the pandemic.
So would you say, Sally, I don't know, are you still there, or you've still having troubles with your connection? Yeah, I think she's still having an issue with her connection. Holly, you're going to have to step up this one as well.
That's fine.
So, would you say that now that we're coming out of lockdown, thank God we're going back to our new normal, things are starting to open up, everybody's going back to work. The systems that you put in place during the lockdown, are you going to carry on with these, or are they going to be scrapped, or and go back to the old ways you used to do? How is it going to work?
No, I think it's good to have a bit of both. Obviously, like I said, having these new ways of working and being a bit more flexible about what we can do, just kind of offers that more support, isn't it? So,
Yes.
or we still ran face-to-face visits during lockdown. That never stopped within our team. We still went and did face-to-face visits if needed. But obviously, we're trying to expand a little bit. We've got more members of our team now, so we're able to do a bit more outreach work as well, which is really good. But I think, the skills that we learned within lockdown should 100% not just be thrown away just because we're now going back to normality, thankfully.
Yeah, the new normal. It's not really normal at all.
Yeah.
With you, Nikki, how was it during the lockdown? How did you manage to carry on your services, and what challenges did you
It
face?
was tough. It was really tough. I think it was tough for everybody. It was particularly tough, for the staff. We had to shut our office pretty quickly. But I'm proud to say that we shut on one day, and the very next day we were kind of ready to go with phoning clients and video calling clients. We tried to do some really creative things so clients wouldn't feel so alone. So we did some kind of virtual coffee cake chat, Zoom sessions. But yeah, I mean, staff found it really hard kind of taking that work into their homes whilst they were also, managing their own circumstances, sometimes with children at home. But yeah, obviously really difficult for the clients as well, not, really losing our building, our safe space, which is what women say to us. They like coming in, they like meeting other clients, they like building that support network. So we've asked women, what do they want going forward? And the majority of women still want to come in. So as soon as we could, we reopened the office, obviously with all safety precautions. So I think, most of our service will go back to being face to face because that's what the women want. And that's how we can kind of, offer the best support that we can. But saying that, where we've got some individuals who can't travel in, or if they're working full time, we used to really struggle in being able to support those women. But now we're kind of saying, well, do you know what? We'll do the video support, we'll do the phone support. So we're really being able to sort of widen out and the support we're able to offer. So there has been some benefits.
I must say it is good for those women who don't know how to get out, and well, they won't have an excuse to tell their husbands or their boyfriend. They will ask them, "Where are you going?" Because they they're being controlled by them. So everything that they do, he's watching and he wants to know each and every move. So I must say that going online was actually for me, thank God to the lockdown. Well, not in a way that I know a lot has happened, and it's been a lot of people. We've lost a lot of people, but there are some good things that have come with that as well, like having being able to go online and get in touch with those needed people that you need to ask for help. So yeah, I must say that it's been something that's been good, and it's good to see that a lot of organizations will be carrying on the online and also the face to face. I suppose with things like talking about domestic violence, it's a very personal and passionate matter, and speaking to somebody over the phone is way totally different than speaking to somebody face to face. I don't know. I suppose it depends with each and every woman, but for me, I think I would prefer the face-to-face conversation, because then you really get to pour your heart out, and you can see that the person you're talking to is listening to you, with their body language and all that. Which and also you have that human contact as well, isn't it?
We've literally just did our first session of our sort of first face-to-face domestic abuse program this morning, and we did do those virtually during lockdown, but the feedback from the women and the practitioners in that room was just so much more powerful than when they were all looking at each other's faces on a screen. It was great, and we had to do that, and it was better than nothing. But there's no replacement for, like you say, that human contact.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Sally is still not here, but anyway, I'm sure she can hear us where she's listening to us. Um, Living with the perpetrator only made life worse for some victims. What measures was in place to assist them in such hard times, especially during the lockdown? Nikki.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely saw during lockdown drops in our referral levels. So to me, domestic abuse wasn't reducing, but that just meant that people were less able to reach out for the help that they needed. And we were finding that when they did come to us, they had more urgent needs, more complex needs, because perhaps they kind of waited and the situation had got worse. But we really just try and highlight that they're not alone, offer them that space to kind of listen. I mean, I think you talked earlier about, believing people. That's really important, that, if they've built up that courage to reach out and sort of say, look, I think this is not quite right, that you are there 100%, believing them. And then putting them in touch with other women that have got similar experiences. We often hear from our groups, it's that moment where I realised I wasn't alone, it wasn't just me. So we find that quite important.
Yeah, it's most of the time that we think that you're in this on your own, and then when you see other women what they're going through, it kind of like make you feel better that you're not alone, and there are people out there who can help you with
Yeah.
situations.
And I think it's that highlighting that it's not your fault. You didn't cause this. You don't deserve this.
Yes, because we tend to blame ourselves for matters that we we didn't even start at the beginning, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm, well, I suppose these are things that we all need to work on and carry on and keep on talking about it, and just maybe try and remove those cultures and stigma that has been historically over way before. It's always been something like, from where I come from, things like that is not something that you just go about and talk to strangers, you know. uh, you just don't come out of your house and tell everybody your business like what everybody that does these days. But thank God, with the times that we're going into, things are improving, and we also need to educate our young women, especially our girls. They are suffering more, and to them, for example, if say you grew up in a home where you've experienced and you've seen this violence between your parents, you tend to think that it's a way of living, isn't it? And as parents, we don't see how that affects our families. So I don't know. In your personal opinion, Holly, how have you used your role to support women and girls?
I think obviously the main part of our role is advocating for the women and girls that come in and report to police. I think obviously the officers, a positive outcome for them is obviously getting a conviction for the case, but we know that a positive outcome isn't always a conviction. It might be supporting someone to leave the relationship, it might be getting refuge, it could be just helping them build their confidence back up again. Education as well, isn't it? It's like you said, we've delivered training within our team to response officers, and obviously other services as well, about what we do and how safeguarding should be managed, just to try and make sure that there's that positive approach that people get when they do come to the first time.
Interesting. Sally, welcome back. Can you hear us? Sally, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, fantastic. We were just talking about the roles that we play in our jobs. How would you say that you've used your role personally to support women and girls?
So in my role, a lot of the ladies I deal with aren't originally from Britain. So a lot of the ladies that I do is about empowering them, knowing the support that is available in the UK, and what the law is in this country, what they can and can't do, and the support that they can't get. And I think that's really important, particularly for the ladies to know, and as well the ladies that I deal with, what all the support services out there, because quite often the ladies will come to the police but don't necessarily want to support a police prosecution. And I'm there to support them in that, to say that's perfectly okay. I'm just glad that you've come to us. I'm glad that you've told us what's really going on, and we can help you. And I think that's a myth that a lot of people have. If you're going to report something to the police, that we're not always going to listen to what you have to say. And 100%, I believe everything what my victims tell me, and I tell them I'm here, as much as I can allow. Obviously, if it's something very, very serious, then, sometimes we may have to take action, but I'm just there to listen to what they want to do and the wishes for them. And if they have children as well, what they'd like to do, and the support I can offer them to help them out that situation, or at the time when they're ready to. Because like I heard you say earlier in the broadcast, and like I heard Nicky say, not a lot of the victims are ready when they come to the services. It said that a victim can encounter domestic abuse 30 times before they make a report to the police. So we're just there to let them know their options. And when they're ready, we're here to support them 100%.
Okay. So you've been in the background and we couldn't hear you. I'm glad you could hear us. Would you say that most of the women who come and speak to you, are they coming there to report the case, or are they coming there to ask for help? Because it sounds like you're saying that most women are not ready to file in a complaint or get the perpetrator arrested.
It's a mixture. So particularly in the field that I deal with honour-based abuse and forced marriage, it could be preemptive to that. Preemptive to maybe a marriage happening that they don't want to be in. So I could apply for orders to prevent that. Or it could be a victim is coming to us to report what's happening, that they've been subject to physical abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, sexual abuse, but they want it recorded, they want it on the system. So effectively they want to make that complaint, but they don't want to pursue that complaint at that time, and that's fine. So it's a mixture of that. Some victims are supportive, and we'll give them as much support as we can to help them through the criminal justice process. But a majority of the victims that I deal with in my role just want the help and support to leave the abusive environment, leave with their family, leave with their children to a safer place.
Okay. Wow. This is a lot, and it's really overwhelming. You've just touched on something that I think we didn't get into talk about earlier, which is forced marriages.
Yes, so there's a lot that the police can do, and a lot that Holly and I'm sure Stepping Stones can do to support the victims in a forced marriage, or even before a forced marriage.
Mm.
So a lot of the victims will come to me and say that their families are proposing a marriage. They don't want to enter into this marriage, but they've been told they don't have a choice. There's a lot of emotional pressure put them in, emotional blackmail to say that it would be an older family member's wish, such as a grandparent. They don't follow through with the wishes, and they're not following through with what their grandparents want. They're told that they're not going to get another marriage suitor if they don't agree to this, that they have to agree to this because it would bring wealth into the family. Or a lot of victims come to me to say that they have been forced to go abroad to enter into a marriage. So it's a claim to a residency for the partner to be brought back to the UK. So we can put things in place to prevent those marriages happening. I myself and my colleague, PC Nanda Richardson, will go to family court and apply for a forced marriage protection order to protect that victim and serve it on anybody who may be forcing that victim into a marriage. And we have had several cases where victims are already abroad, have managed to reach out for help, along with the forced marriage unit, who are based at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. And we've been able to help those victims abroad, get a forced marriage protection order, serve that on the family, and then get that victim to a place of safety in the country wherever they are abroad, and then repatriate them back to the UK.
Oh wow! What sort of age groups are we looking at in with the situations, the cases that you're dealing with? Which age group are you mostly having most of these forced marriages cases reported?
Varying age groups. Case I've had recently was 11, and the oldest lady I've had she was in her mid-60s.
Wow.
But predominantly the highest age range group I see is between the age of 16 and 21.
11, it goes into a whole total different ball game, isn't it? It's a child sexual exploitation, and it's a long list of abuses that's going on with that child.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of it is here around education as well, and educating what is and what isn't acceptable, and the laws in this country as well. So trying to reach out as well to communities to say what is and isn't acceptable in this country.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I was talking about, our cultures. We've had so long things that's been happening before we were even born, and these cultures are still carried on and carried on and carried on. And I think it's time for people to be educated of what is wrong and what is right, and everything being passed on to our young people, especially now. They will probably not have to carry those rituals or those cultures going forward. It is something that we need to be talking about a lot more, I think. Nikki, the women that are referred to you, is there any situations where you have similar cases of forced marriages or young age women being forced to get married, or even children, like I'm hearing from Sally?
Yes, yeah. I mean, we only deal with women over the age of 18, and we're an adult service. But yes, definitely. It's really sad, and it's horrific. But I think we just try, and I think, like Sally said, we just try and educate women, so they know that is not right, and they know that there are other options, and that we will be there to support them to do it. I mean, some of the women has kind of managed to be really strong and get themselves out of that situation, but then dealing with the consequences of that can be equally as difficult, because they might lose contact with all of their friends and family. They might be absolutely ostracized from their community, which is obviously really difficult. So we will try and offer them like practical and emotional support around that.
Wow. My next question is, what is it place to encourage more women to speak up about domestic abuse, and what measures are in place to support the victims? Seeing is times women shy away from reporting because no one will believe them. If I can start with Holly, please.
Yeah. I think it's having all of these support services in place that are there to encourage victims that support is available and that they can report and that they can be believed. I think as well we're trying to utilise other measures such as Clare's Law, which can obviously be used to kind of prevent, you know, domestic abuse happening before, you know, the relationship even progresses. You know, it used to be that you had to have a concern about your partner before you put in a Clare's Law. That's not the case anymore. So, you know, we're encouraging women and men as well, that obviously once they're in a new relationship, they can submit a Clare's Law application to make sure that, you know, find out if there is any violent history or any previous domestic abuse history. So it's trying to put these preventative measures in place as well.
Sorry, Holly. What do you call it? The
Clare's Law. It's a disclosure scheme. So basically,
does it work the same as a DBS check or a police check?
So it's anyone can put it in. It doesn't have to be a company or anything like that. So, for example, if I got in a new relationship, I could put in a Clare's Law application about my new partner. And then what the police does is we check their history. So we do all of our different computer checks. And then if there is anything that's of a concern, we can complete a disclosure. And we have the powers to disclose that information to that person so that they are able to make an informed decision about their relationship and their safety. And it's not just the person in the relationship that can make that application. You know, if I had a sister or a friend, you know, professionals as well can put in Clare's Law applications. So it's something that we're trying to promote at the moment because it is really useful to kind of prevent domestic abuse happening right at the beginning.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. I've never heard of it before. So.
Yeah.
We will be asking you for information about it, and then we can share it with our listeners as well in our community. It's quite interesting that you say that anybody can apply for it. It would need more encouraging for the person who is going into the relationship instead of a friend or a mother or somebody from the family, because there is a saying that that goes that the most difficult person to advise is somebody who's gone into a relationship. There's nothing you can tell them that if they don't want to hear it, I mean, there's absolutely nothing you can do.
And that's it. You know, it's always, you know, we offer that out there to give those disclosures. And when we do the disclosures, we say to people, you know, we're not there to tell them that they have to end their relationships. You know, we're just giving that information so that ideally they have that in the back of their mind. If they continue that relationship, you know, they can look out and see if there are any of those warning signs. You know, it's just there so that we can advise them and make sure that they're safeguarded.
Okay, interesting. Sally.
So from our perspective, the police have done a lot on their social media channels to try and encourage more reporting, that there are other ways of reporting to the police. You don't just have to report calling 101, which is our non-emergency number. Obviously, you call 999 in an emergency, but there's web chat facilities now. So I'm finding a lot of victims of honour-based abuse and forced marriage, where things are monitored, where they can't talk freely in the home, are using the web chat services to report to police. Other professional agencies as well that they are using to report. So that's really important to note that as well, that you don't just have to call the police, you can report on those other services as well. So I'd really highly encourage people to use that if they're in a situation where it's difficult for them to speak. Go online and use our web chat facility. We'd also say with victims of honour-based abuse and forced marriage, we don't have to come to your home address because we know sometimes that poses a big risk, especially because families would perceive shame of uniformed officers turning up at the address. My role is non-uniform, so I wouldn't be seen in that, police officer if I'm seen meeting with a victim. And I always encourage meeting a victim where I can, away from the home address, so as to not arouse suspicion with anybody and not put them in harm's way or at further risk as well.
Interesting. And Nikki?
Yeah, I think we really try and promote our services and the women's experience on social media. I think sometimes it's more powerful for the women coming in to speak to each other rather than speak to a member of staff. We've got a lot of staff members also that have had that shared life experience. They are not just talking from a theoretical perspective. They have actually been in that situation. They've experienced that abuse and they come through the other side. And that can really kind of encourage people to see that there is an alternative and you can get through it. So we find that quite powerful.
Well, thank you very much for that. Well, I think I'll have something to add on that. Like I mentioned before, I'm very passionate about women, and bringing women like yourselves on our platform to talk about such matters is how that we are encouraging the young girls and the young women out there in the community to say, look, this when something is not right, it's not right. If you can either get help or you can actually report that person to the police, and you will be safeguarded, because I find that there's lot of young women who are already going through domestic abuse with their boyfriends. They're not even married yet, so they they thought of what will happen in a situation where they carry on and go and get married to this person. How is it going to be when they're married, if they're going to be abusing them at this moment where they're not even a husband and wife? um a lot of them say that they don't know how to deal with it, and they don't know where to go, and they can't trust anybody to talk about it. So I'm hoping with this broadcast we're doing, it will give them a stepping stone who they can turn to, who they can talk to, and get a better guidance of their lives, or how to carry on with somebody who is in a situation of abuse. This also goes to the perpetrator as well. Some men don't even know they're doing these things, and I'm hoping that the men's organization that you've mentioned, offering services to perpetrators as well, to educate them on how you deal with conflicts in a relationship, instead of being violent. There are ways to resolve issues in each marriage or relationship, isn't it? So I will be doing a bit of homework, and maybe reaching out to you, Holly and Sally and Nikki as well, to just share with us more information and more partners and organizations who are out there, who can give the services or the advice, or just a listening ear for somebody to say
Yeah.
that all I wanted was somebody to talk to. So yeah, well, I guess with this year's theme, we can finish off with the International Women's Day theme, hashtag breaking the bias. What message would you like to leave today with our listeners out there, our young women and our young men as well? Holly?
Yeah. I think it's that they will be believed. Like we say, domestic abuse happens to a lot of people. Uh, and that the main thing is that if they do report to police or they do want that support available, they will be believed and we will support them as much as possible.
Fantastic. Sally?
I would say removing that stigma of don't be ashamed, don't be embarrassed to report domestic violence, whether you're a man or a woman. You will be believed, you will be helped, and you will be supported.
Thank you. Last but not least, Nicky.
I think I would just say you're not alone. You don't have to put up with this, and you have the right to be happy and to be safe.
Well, with that, I'd say, ladies, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And my last words for me this afternoon, for anybody who is going through a domestic abusive relationship or a marriage, or being forced into getting into a marriage that you're not willing to, is my heart goes out to you. I cannot even begin to imagine how it feels like to be in a situation where you're being abused and you don't feel safe in your own home. And I just want to say thank you to services like yourselves who are out there working tirelessly night and day, 24/7. I know you have hotlines that anyone can pick up the phone any time of the day and reach out for support or for help from yourselves. So I just want to encourage each and everybody out there, being women or men, if you're going through something that you feel is not right, it's better to speak up before it's too late. It's better safe than sorry. So, with that, I just want to say thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We will be inviting the ladies from time to time, just so that we keep these conversations going. We don't want people to forget that domestic abuse is a very, very serious issue that is affecting our communities. So, you will be seeing these ladies in the near future more often. With that, to all our listeners and those who are watching us on Facebook, thank you, and stay blessed and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Step 1. Use our warehouse as a forwarding address at checkout. Step 2. Delivery to our warehouse and we will check your goods. Step 3. We deliver worldwide, handle customs, notify you of your cost and prepare your package for delivery to your door. Contact us today on 44784 2510362 or 44744 6705 955, or alternatively send an email to info@worldcargoint.com. World Cargo International, where no item is too big.